Zandon's poetry in motion. Big horse, but light on his feet. And he's always showed up and been consistent and been right there with some of the top horses in training. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he showed his determination and his raw ability.
It's over! Zandon wins the Toyota Bluegrass!
I feel breeders will be really blown away by what a striking, outstanding-looking horse he is.
Sure Bet Coffee. Put the giddy up in your cup. Tracking trips with Pick 6 King John Stetton. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going? Back for another week.
Yeah, we're closing out the Kentucky Derby radar season. It'll be Kentucky Derby before you know it. We got the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, the UAE Derby, which we're not really going to cover that much because we got no past performances at the time of recording. Shame on you, Dubai, but I guess they don't think it's important because, quote, they don't bet over there. But and then next week we got the Bluegrass, the
Santa Anita Derby in the Wood.
Derby and the Wood Memorial. Right. I went brain dead for a minute there. More than a minute, but could happen to anybody. But yeah, and then you got that last minute, Lexington stab. And then we're at the Run for the Roses, first Saturday in May.
Yeah, I mean, two thoughts come to mind for me just over the last couple of months, kind of leading into these, final two big weekends. One is I've picked a handful of winners on these Derby radar shows, so just fully expecting to crash and burn on Derby Day. That's the way it's probably going to happen. And then the other thing is, it just feels like right now, and maybe we'll see some good performances this weekend and next, but just seems like the number of contenders, at least in my book right now, is relatively smaller than it's been in years past.
I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah.
Normally, going in, I've got a bunch of contenders, and I know I've got a lot of eliminating to do. This year, not so much, but I'm looking at things different than a lot of people so far, with the exception of Sierra Leone, who, as you know, I think we've both been high on.
Yeah.
I've been on him since his maiden win and the Remsen after that. But, other than that, I think I've got some interesting opinions. Later this week, we got another show. We're going to do the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby later this week. Giosetti is going to do his deep dive on the Florida and Arkansas Derbies as well. So we got that coming up. And he does it a little different than anybody, I know. He goes through every horse and predicts his projected order of finish from first all the way to last. I don't know how he does it, but that's what he does. And he does hit his share of winners. He's pretty sharp. So Gio will be coming out later this week. One takeaway that I had from last week, and I know you picked the winner of the Louisiana Derby, Catching Freedom. My take on that race was similar to my take on the Remsen when I said Dornoch never beats Sierra Leone again. And coincidentally, it's another Chad horse. I don't think anybody in that race ever beats Tuscan Gold again. I thought he ran huge. I thought, coming out of the race, in my opinion, and again, I trust my eyes more than anything else. I thought he showed he was a cut above those horses, even in defeat. He broke from a wide post. He wound up third, but it was more so the trip, the lack of experience, the fact he was only, coming out of a maiden race, had only 2 starts, was catching a lot more seasoned horses. Chad thought enough of him to take a stab at the Derby. Obviously, he's not going to get in, finishing third. But he definitely looks like a, quote, cloud computing, early voting type that may bypass the Kentucky Derby and be tough as nails in Maryland or wherever he decides to go. He broke from a wide post. He was between horses in an uncomfortable spot for an inexperienced horse. He had to check and back up on heels a little bit. Turning for home, it looked like he was finished, and Tyler was really asking him. And then, he kind of re-engaged, came again, showed the wear from that, come again and the early trouble late in the race when he got passed by those other 2. But the fact that he was able to run that good, come again, showing a lot of guts, a lot of courage with that inexperience level, I think, he's got every right and shows every sign of developing into one of the top 3-year-olds this year. So, the horse that caught my eye, not necessarily for Derby Day, but although he may be in one of the undercard races on Derby Day, but Tuscan Gold is a serious racehorse with a lot of potential, and he'll wind up annihilating them horses later in the year, is my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I included him on the pick 5 ticket, and he was up close to the lead. So I was watching more him than Catching Freedom, who I also had on the ticket, but he was further back. So it looked like as they were going into the far turn, like it just took a little bit more encouragement to get him to kind of move on with the race. Like it just looked like he, for, maybe like 3 to 5 seconds, he was just kind of like sputtering there.
Absolutely.
And just like wasn't engaging the leaders. But, to your point, it did look like he re-engaged nicely and, and finished well enough. Just maybe perhaps that 3 to 5 seconds where he was, just looked like he was kind of spinning his wheels might have cost him, I guess.
It certainly cost him. And, he had every right to do that because he had some trouble in the race before that. And, an inexperienced horse running against more seasoned horses, between horses, behind horses, taking a lot more dirt in the face than he's used to over a new track, can take his toll. And, he probably got there and said, what's going on? Who knows what's going through the horse's mind. But when things got serious in the stretch, he did re-engage and show some fight. And, that's something you can't train. You can't even breed. You can't teach. It's just they got it or they don't. And he certainly, in my view, had it. So, he's one to watch going forward. I could see that horse winning the Travers or the Belmont up at Saratoga or a race like that without question. So Chad looks loaded. He's got domestic spending, Sierra Leone, Tuscan Gold. He's got some really, really nice 3-year-olds if they stay healthy. The other race, it's a shame. Endlessly ran big. We both liked him. He was the favorite. He did not disappoint. But they're talking about putting him back on the grass. I don't think they're going to go to the Derby with him.
Well, nice horse, but I don't know. I kind of respect that move, I guess. If they feel like he's a better turf horse, why eat up the spot in the starting gate? Let somebody else have it.
I agree with that. I've got no argument with that. He is a nice turf horse, and if they think that's where his future is, why take a chance of ruining him or souring him, or anything else happening in a derby if the future is on the lawn. So
Right.
I can definitely endorse that. You want to start with the Florida Derby?
Yeah. Let's pull that up here. All right.
Well,
I guess
Frankie's Empire, I liked a little bit in the Fountain of Youth at a big price before all the scratches, and that race was decimated. Once that happened, he really lost any chance that he had. But I don't like the way the race shapes up for him this time at all.
Yeah, I think I think all the scratches in the Fountain of Youth probably make that last race, at least on paper, seem a little bit better than it probably was for him. So yeah, I liked him a little bit too in the Fountain of Youth, but feels like he's probably up against it here.
Hayes, interesting horse. I guess we'll find out if he's for real or not on Saturday. I've got my reservations.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every one of these races, there's always a horse that is, on paper a contender, and they pair that last out buyer that is an angle that isn't really anything new, but is an angle that I tend to like and feel like they're going to be sitting on another forward move. And I feel like if that's the case with Hayes, right in the mix. And if you feel like what we talked about coming out of the Holy Bull, there was some debate over, just how much trouble Fierceness had or didn't have. So depending on which side of that fence you're on, maybe you think that Hayes beat Fierceness on the square. And if that's the case, you probably should like Hayes again, because he's most likely going to be a larger price than Fierceness. Obviously we'll talk about Fierceness here in the next couple of minutes, but I think this horse is sitting on another forward move with a little bit of a break. And I think this horse is, fits firmly in this race. Still up in the air as whether or not this will be my top pick, but certainly one of the few contenders in here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree. I am in the camp that he did beat Fierceness on the square. I didn't think that Fierceness had a lot of trouble or anything happened to him that cost him that race. I thought he had a kind of perfect trip and just couldn't go by this horse when it counted. Fierceness has been inconsistent in his brief career thus far, and that just was a day that he just wasn't on it and didn't have it. And maybe Hayes is just a better horse than him on the square. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm not wild about either one of them. And I think that they'll probably engage each other relatively early, because I don't think Fierceness wants to let him get away or get in front of him again. I think that he'll probably want to get in front of him. Paco from the inside is probably not going to be too keen on letting that happen. So I think those two can, help set it up for somebody that's not engaged early.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing we can talk about too, when we get to Fierceness, is just that outside post draw. Like, look at, they're basically starting right before the turn. So we can, go back and forth on whether we think that's a disadvantage. This bail us out for Pletcher and Rapoli. I mean, he gets Irad on there. That's a little interesting, isn't it?
It is, and if he wins at 8-10 to 1, everybody will be like Rapoli, Pletcher, Irad at 10 to 1. How did that happen? But if it does, it'll happen without my money on him. I don't, I don't, I don't like his first dirt race. I don't like that he was 11 to 1 for that first dirt race. It looks like that the Todd Pletcher camp, and Rapoli camp for that matter, is getting a little. I don't know that desperate's the right word, but getting a little aggressive and hungry to get as many in the gate as they can. So I think they're taking some shots with horses that might be over their heads or not quite ready for this as of yet. And I would say that he falls in that category, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I said last week. It just seems like Rapoli, I think, is realizing that he doesn't have any killers this year and is just throwing every 3-year-old at the wall to see which one sticks and can get him in the starting gate. And, Fierceness has been fine, but like you said, he's been inconsistent, and none of the other horses that he's got have really impressed me whatsoever throughout the Derby trail. So,
well, now I agree. His horses are starting to fizzle out, but now you beg the question, because you said it. I wasn't going to say it, but you said it. You said Rapoli knows he's got no monsters. So you think that in his mind he thinks Fierceness is not a monster, or you think he still personally believes that Fierceness is a monster?
good question. I don't know. I just feel like there's the fact that he's putting multiple horses in a bunch of these prep races suggests to me that deep down, he knows that he doesn't have a standout like he had last year in Forte or some of the other horses that he's rolled out there with big shots in recent years.
Yeah.
Hey, and if Fierceness continues this on again, off again sort of pattern, having a handful of races under his belt, then it's, he's setting up for a win here and then a dud in the Kentucky Derby, which we could talk about when he comes up here in the next few minutes. But in my opinion, it just seems like he's pressing. He's pressing to get into the starting gate, given all this stuff that's going on. And he's got to be in there. He's got to be in there with a big shot. And I feel like he's, maybe desperate, like you said, is the right word. I don't know, but it's interesting. But I will share this little bit of tidbit. And again, it's just opinion. I've been around this game a long time. One of the things I learned very, very early in my betting and student of the game career is that owners and trainers have the worst opinions about their own horses. Okay. When a trainer talks about his horse and likes his horse, even if you take the business side out where they're hyping the horse up for stud deals and this and that and whatnot, you take that out of the equation. Okay. They're still very, very biased. It's like I always equate it to a parent talking about their kid. They always see the good, You see these mothers and fathers. The kid just killed 4 people. Oh, you're such a good boy. You know what I mean? Oh, he's misunderstood. Oh, he had problems growing up. Oh, you never see a parent say, this kid was a piece of garbage since the day we had him. He was no good. We try to teach him everything. He's just a bad seed. You ever heard that on the news with any of these guys? I mean, same thing with people talking about their horses. They always see the good. And one of the other things they never do is they never objectively evaluate the competition. See, as a bettor, we can objectively look at the entire field. You follow me? And make an opinion. They look at it with blinkers on. As a trainer, oh, I love my horse. I love my horse. I love my horse.
there's only 2 trainers, and I've spoken to, I can't even count how many about their horses. There's only 2 trainers that I've ever spoken to about horses and stakes and big races coming up that have actually said, yeah, I really like my horse, but this other horse is really good. I don't know that I could beat him. And that's Bob Baffert and Chad Brown. Those guys not only look at their horses, but they're very objective and evaluate the field and know. And I'm not saying that other guys don't do it as well, but I've never had those kind of conversations with anybody else. Most of the time, I don't want to know what you think of your own horse because I already know you love him. You know what I mean? Or he wouldn't be in the race. So just a little bit of a tidbit. This next horse, Grand Motor First, is extremely interesting to me. I thought he had a real shot in the Tampa Bay Derby. I think he ran well. Chad's horse, Domestic Product, ran better. But going into that race, I was looking at this horse, and his only dirt race looked like a perfect setup race for the Tampa Bay Derby. Now he comes back on dirt. He's an Uncle Mo. It looks like he's improving. I think he's going to be in a good spot with some pace in front of him with Fierceness and Hayes. And he's one of 2 that I'm really looking at in here, and I take very serious.
Yeah, I agree. I like this little form cycle that he's got going on. And again, we see. I mean, granted, there was the layoff in there, pretty long layoff in there, but paired buyers took a move forward. The only concern for me is you don't typically see horses come from the Tampa Bay Derby into the Florida Derby off of a relatively quick turnaround. I think it's going to be three weeks ish. 3-4 weeks, I guess. So maybe that's not such a bad thing, but with that blanket finish like we saw in the Tampa Bay Derby, I think any of those top 4 finishers, ran fairly well. So, another step forward for this horse in, third start as a 3-year-old. I think he fits a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think he's really dangerous. I'm not worried about coming back off the Tampa Bay Derby. I like horses coming off that track, going back to Gulfstream, especially that's his base. So I think he's a dangerous horse on Saturday.
Real Macho, I don't know. Probably a cut below the rest here, I think.
I would agree. Looks a cut below to me.
Yeah. This Ledombro, I feel like has gotten a fair bit of buzz over the last couple of weeks, coming out of that Fountain of Youth. Obviously a career best effort at 27-1. What do you make of this horse?
I think the decimated field helped them. I wasn't impressed with that race, or anybody coming out of it. The winner, Dornock included. I just didn't like the race. Don't like him. Hopefully he shows a little pace and helps set it up. Chasing Fierceness and Hayes and pushing that issue a little bit, and help set it up for somebody coming off. Yeah,
and it's tough to really get a sense of that last race just because would they scratch down to 4 or 5 horses? And all the top contenders weren't really even in there other than Dornock. So, tough to really make heads or tails of it. So
I agree.
All right. Catalytic.
Interesting. I always, I respect that barn. They win a lot of races. 2 sprints. Interesting, interesting way to go into the Florida Derby. Uh, Another one I think can show some speed and have some pace and help set it up for the two that I like. Uh, he'd have to be really good to be able to win this. Can he pull it off? Maybe. I would bet against him, and I would
Yeah.
also be, a little worried about Julian Leperoux. He doesn't really like to gun. And I think that when you're coming out of two sprints and stretching out the first time, your best chance of winning is to gun and take the lead and use that sharpness and that sprint speed to get a jump on the rest of the field. And that's really not Julian's style. Never really was. So I doubt he'll do that. So he's an intriguing entrant, but not one that I would back at the Winders.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he would just need to take a pretty big step forward to be in the mix here. And yeah, to your point, I think, like we saw in this running line from his maiden race, perhaps that's the best path forward for him, is to just get out there early and see what happens. So a pace factor, but, not sure it'll be a factor late in the race. This Seminole Chief was interesting to me. I liked him going into the Withers, but never really did much there. Halfway through the race, kind of, backed out of it. So I think if we draw a line through that, his last race at Gulfstream was promising. It looks like, he's getting back on the dirt. It looks like that was on the synthetic last time. So I don't know. What do you make of that? Like, is that, the condition drop from the Withers to this optional claimer, the surface switch. Definitely some
LASIK. Got LASIK that day, so
now he's coming off it.
He's back on a fast dirt track, and his last fast track dirt race, he did win one of the Florida Stallion Series races at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah.
Joel rides him, gives him a shot. I don't like him. He looks, he looks a cut below the better ones in here to me, but he's not completely hopeless, I guess, back on a fast track. I don't like him.
Yeah, I guess I was interested in the Withers, and
No, even if I draw a line through that race because of the mud or whatever and the layoff, I still don't get to him here.
Yeah, a lot of changes going into a big race that makes you weary. Now that I'm kind of thinking out loud. Conquest Warrior was one that you liked.
I think I think he's the winner if he can run as good coming back off LASIK as he's run on it. I think the day he broke his maiden was as impressive a race as any of the horses in this race, with the exception of maybe Fierceness's Breeders' Cup win. But that was just an impressive race. He had a ton of trouble, won anyway, at Gulfstream, where it's tough to get in that kind of trouble going a mile, coming off the pace and win. He came back and validated that at a short price. I would say this: if he can run as good off LASIK as he has run on it, I think he's the winner. How big of an if is that? I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that question. LASIK definitely helps. It definitely moves horses up. I don't think you can dispute that. I still got to land on him. Hopefully he's okay without it. But I think, if he is, I think he gets the right setup. I think there's enough pace in there to set it up for him. Mile and an eighth, perfect. Gulfstream is not the perfect track to close over, but it's doable under the right circumstances, and I think he may get the right circumstances and the right setup on Saturday. I love Jose as a rider. Uh, Shug is getting up there in years. He's hitting the twilight of his career, but I don't think you can possibly argue that he knows what to do with a good horse and he knows where to run him. And he's old school. He lets the horses take him to the race as opposed to him taking them to the race. So this horse is obviously showing him he belongs in the Florida Derby. He knows what it takes to win a race like that and get to Louisville. So I'm top choice. And if there wasn't the Lasix question mark in there, I would like him a really lot and say, get online now because that's the play. But that is unfortunately a question mark that we got to deal with. But I like Conquest Warrior, and I think he'll be able to run a big race on Saturday.
Yeah. It certainly seems like it's an improving horse and should be in the mix for sure. All right, Fierceness. I don't know what we make of this horse. Just seems like for what might be a heavy favorite, there's just still like a variety of questions here that would make me look elsewhere given the price. How much do you buy into the fact that he was, bumped pretty good at the start and that, cost him his first race back after the Breeders' Cup. He's had a relatively long break since the Holy Bull. Took him 3 weeks to get back on the work tab after that, which seems, and you would probably know better than I, it seems like a little bit longer than normal. Isn't it usually like 10 to 14 days typically?
You would think. We don't know how much that bump took out of him. I'm a big believer in that. I just, I watched the replay. I watched the head on. I didn't think it was all that. Maybe I'm underestimating it a little bit, but I don't know. He's been inconsistent. He's going to have other speed to deal with. I think they did, try and teach him a little bit in his workouts how to deal with, company. And, his works were, Mike Rapoli described them on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it as wow. I don't know that I would go wow. I thought they were good works. But I don't think he gets the right setup. I think he gets company on the front end. I don't know that he can handle that yet. Although he did run a nice stalking trip in the Breeders' Cup. We'll see. I'm going to bet against him.
What do you make of the outside post? I'm pretty sure he was.
I don't make much of it at all. I think they got a pretty decent sized run into that first turn. I think it's a little deceptive on the top there, that mile and an eighth, that Gulfstream. That really looks like the mile and a 16th spot to me.
Yeah.
They pretty much mile and an eighth start further back than that and have a bigger run in the stretch than that graphic on the top would indicate. I've watched about 1 million mile and an eighth races at Gulfstream, and they don't start that close to the turn. So at a mile and an eighth. So I think the post, if anything, helps him because it keeps him out of trouble, keeps him out of traffic, keeps him from getting a lot of dirt in his face, which he may not like. Kind of sets him up to get a decent stalking kind of trip.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if you had to narrow it down and say, okay, him and Hayes beat him on the square last time. You gotta like Hayes because he's the bigger price. I don't subscribe to that philosophy or that theory. I go by, who I think is going to win first, and then I'll look at the price and see if he's worth the bet. But if you asked me who I thought was the more likely winner, and I only had to pick from Hayes or Fierceness, I think Fierceness turns the tables on him and and gets him by him this time. But we'll see. Maybe not. You know what I mean? But I'm not in love with either one of them. I'm landing on another horse, and my second choice is another horse. So, not using either one of them. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I still think Fierceness needs to show me something. I was, disappointed with the Holy Bull. Obviously, as I'm sure most people were watching him. But yeah, this sort of on again, off again pattern would suggest that he's, sitting on another quality effort, which, by all accounts, should be the most likeliest winner if he runs his best race. But we'll see. This might just be an information gathering race on this horse for me.
No argument.
Iris's Dream. I don't know. Nothing got me excited here.
Be a huge surprise, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So that is the Florida Derby. Let's pull up the Arkansas Derby. All right. So this Will Take It. Really kind of freaked in his last race. Like that's a huge jump forward for a horse to take. What do you make of that? Is that a positive in your eyes going into this race, or does that strike you as a bit too big of a jump and makes you a little bit questionable?
Well, I'm going to call him questionable for other reasons. The jump doesn't scare me that much. He didn't win the race. He's still a maiden. He's going against winners. I think he's got his work cut out for him, and then some to jump. Go from that maiden race and come back and win a race like this. And I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Timberlake.
Likely favorite. Brad Cox winning all the preps. Pratt comes in to ride. Took Christian Torres right off. Put Pratt on. He's your favorite. He's on most people's Kentucky Derby radar, not mine. I think he's okay. I don't think he's top tier. I think he's kind of like a workman-like, good grade 1, grade 2, kind of horse. But I think that in the big spots, there's going to be somebody better than him.
Yeah.
Starting here.
With the next one, Dematic?
No, starting in this race. Not necessarily
Dematic. Yeah, it just seems like, he won the Rebel. Seemed like he was pretty much in control the whole way. I just don't know like how quality of a race that was necessarily. He just kind of towered over that field and, did what we all expected him to do. Certainly a contender here for sure. But, I think if others make a little bit of a jump here, he certainly could get beat. Definitely.
No question.
All right. Dematic finished way back in in the Rebel. Didn't really do much in that race. What do you make of this one?
I liked him in the Rebel. I thought he was, going forward. But there's a horse, kind of like Shug's horse that we talked about in the Florida Derby. He ran 2 decent races in Lasix, come off it, and kind of run up the track. And that's the one thing, like I said, scares me a little bit about Shug's horse in the Florida Derby. But Steve comes back with him here, so he hasn't lost faith yet. But a lot of people are trying to get into the gate in Louisville. I kind of view him as one of those type of horses. He would really need to turn it around. I would need to know that there was a legitimate good excuse for that flop in the Rebel in order to back him.
Yeah. This Time for Truth, and going through this race last night, I was kind of struggling to figure out what the pace dynamics and the setup would be here, trying to figure out who would be going forward. And we could talk about Time for Truth. Just kind of envisioning this race playing out in my mind, it seems like this Time for Truth probably his best bet is to be forward early, if not right on the lead. I just wonder if he's fast enough. And, I thought perhaps Muth might be one to set the pace, but we could talk about that when we get to him. This one just kind of seems, a cut or two below the top horses here, but I think he could play a factor in the early pace setup, which, might make things a little bit interesting.
I agree. I like the way he's been brought up to the race by Ron Moquette. I think he's a nice horse. I think we'll find out how nice on Saturday. I think he's a contender. Top choice, no. I don't think he needs a lead to win. I think he can get it or he can sit. And we'll see. I mean, he's going to have to, step up again in order to win this. But that's certainly not impossible. He's lightly raced. And, I think he's a contender.
Liberal Arts was one that I liked going into the Southwest along with Mystic Dan. Just some interesting jockey moves in this race too.
Yeah.
Like Steve's got a bunch of horses, but Tyler Gaffleone is not on any of them, which is a little bizarre to me, I guess. But this Liberal Arts, I feel like is a contender. Southwest was, probably a little bit disappointing, but second race off the layoff here. And I think this horse with a move forward would be in the mix. And I'm expecting this horse to run pretty well.
I can't really argue that because if you look at his last 2 races, he caught slop and mud. Now he goes back, to a fast track. His fast track race in the Iroquois was okay. Before that, at Ellis, he won over a fast track. He's handled, a fast track. So he's gotten better. And now we see him for the first time since he's gotten better back on a fast track. So, yeah, I agree. He's a serious contender. Tyler's riding great. I think he's a really strong finisher. And I think this horse will be running at the end. I agree with you.
Yeah. Informed Patriot. Lukewarm on this one. I don't know. It just hasn't really seemed like he's been running against good company, or at least, good enough company lately to have any real confidence in this one.
I can't get to him.
Yeah. Muth. probably one of the fastest, if not the fastest horse in the race. I think the the layoff after the Breeders' Cup, coming back, beat a relatively weak field, we'll say, and then off for another little bit. So first start since January, but by all accounts should be forwardly placed, and should be a strong contender, I think.
No question. I think he does whatever he wants here, pace wise. I think he can sit, he can take the lead, he can do whatever Juan Hernandez wants. I think he's absolutely the horse to beat, in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you think? How do you think the pace sets up in this one? Because I was kind of going back and forth between that Time for Truth, Muth, or this. You could maybe argue that this Imperial Gun on the outside, might make sense for. Oh, you're shaking your head.
I think it's really a good question for Juan Hernandez, because I think he controls the pace. I think he does whatever he wants. I think if he wants to lead, he gets it. If he wants to let someone go and sit off them, he can do that, and probably take whoever that is he sits off whenever he wants to. So I think he controls the race, and the race goes through him. The layoff doesn't worry me at all with Bob. I mean, Bob could win a race like this off 2 years. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. He can. It's just cold, hard fact of life. Bob Baffert and layoffs doesn't matter. A guy can train a horse up to a race. I've seen him, decide, deliberately just to train up to a race and go in, super fresh like that. So he knows what he's doing. He don't run no short horse in the Arkansas Derby.
What do you make of these? He's got 3 6-furlong works in a row.
Love it. Listen, the Bob Baffert 6 furlong 112 work is my patented Bob Baffert killer work. When I see that, I love it.
3 in a row is a lot, though. Isn't it typically just the last one that where he does that?
Yeah, but
that doesn't suggest to you it feels like he needs to get a little extra distance in this horse?
If he wants to have him fit. You know what I mean? He's off since January, like you said. He wants to have him fit. He doesn't want to, I mean, I can't remember who it is, but there was one horse he run a couple of years ago. I want to say it was Taiba in the Haskell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I was talking to him after the race, and I said something. I think Mike Smith should have went to the lead. I think if he went to the lead, he wins. And he goes, nah, that wasn't it. I needed to get one more 6 furlong work into him, and just time ran out on me. So he knows. You know what I mean? I like that. If you give him 3 6 furlong works, tells me he knows that's what he needs, and
he's ready.
I ain't worried.
All right. Just Steel. This was like another horse that I felt like that Rebel was pretty disappointing. I figured he would have ran a little bit better. Even the Southwest, that was, in my opinion, that was his race to win. Just the way it seemed like he was coming into that race, was rounding into form. None of those horses prior to that race, really jumped off the page, made it feel like, they were, far and away better than this one. And his last 2 races just been disappointing, to put it lightly. And I've just, lost a little bit of faith in this one, and can't.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Uh, Jim, he run every prep over there so far. The Smarty Jones, the Southwest, the Rebel, now the Arkansas Derby. And Lucas is funny. I mean, he always can pop up and win one of these when you least expect it. But and he does. You know what I mean? And he'll fool you, and he'll sometimes it's 20, 30 to 1, and he'll pop up and win one of them. But I gotta think this horse might be a little tired.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dances, and even before that, he run Churchill Downs. I mean, this horse ain't had a break since he started. So if he decides to, put his game face on and show up and win the Arkansas Derby, he'll beat me and surprise me. But we've seen Lucas do this before, so you can't say, wow, I'm shocked, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah. Didn't Lucas win a couple of weeks ago with that lemon muffin at like 40 to 1 or whatever? Wasn't
Yes.
that in one of the Oaks preps or something?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this one, like, it's a good point. And I think, you could argue that Track Phantom last weekend in the Louisiana Derby, similar case. He's just has not had a break in many, many, many months. And, I think getting caught late in both of those last two preps in Louisiana would suggest that horse is probably pretty tired and might need a little bit of a freshening. And, Just Steel might be the same coming off of those two disappointing efforts last time.
No argument.
Mystic Dan, I like this horse and mentioned him on the show ahead of the Southwest. Just seems like that was a little bit of like a fluky race for him to run off and win by 8 lengths there. I don't know that I can necessarily come back around to him in this one, especially with the tougher competition that he's going to be facing with Timberlake and Muth. Not sure that this is a win contender in here.
Well, you got that, and you got the fact that last win come in the mud too, so that might have moved him up. So yeah, I would agree and take a position against him myself.
Yeah. This Imperial Gun, like I was mentioning earlier, I think his best opportunity is to be in the mix early. So perhaps a sort of pace factor early on, but beyond that, not much in the way of excitement for me for this one. Just like some of these jockey moves for Asmussen in this race are just a little confusing.
I agree.
Like, what do you make of that? It just, I wish we could get, they'd have to put out like an explanation as to why, who is riding who. But, I guess we're just kind of left to our own hypothesis and, trying to, avoid going deep down into the rabbit hole of trainer jockey moves. But it seemed all of it just seemed a little peculiar to me, with Asmussen having a handful of horses and Tyler Gaffleon's not on any of them. Just bizarre, and I don't know what to do with it.
Right, and Rosario's at Gulfstream riding a relatively long shot in the Florida Derby when he rides so many for Steve. He's not there, so there's I'm like you though. I'm not going to go down that path and try and figure that out. We'll deal with who's in the irons, and I don't see this horse winning. He's lightly raced, and he run bad, good, bad. So maybe he's sitting on like a Z pattern type of good race, but even a good race from that outside post, I don't know, gets him into the winner's circle at all.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm on liberal arts here. Muth is the superior horse in the race. I think Timberlake coming out of that Rebel, just not. I don't think that race was all that great.
You think Muth? Who do you think would be the favorite, Muth or Timberlake? I mean, Cox has been on fire, and I think that's gonna show at the windows a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that would be, I guess, if that was the case, then Muth would be the play as the second choice, I guess. But I don't know. They love Baffert at Oak Lawn.
Well, I love Cox too, but I agree.
I don't know. We'll see. I think they'll be very, very close in the betting. We don't have the morning lines yet for this to. Not that stuff really means anything this far out, but
if you were making the morning line, what would you make them to?
I'm not good at that. I don't know. I would probably say Muth 8-5.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, these are the two horses. Like everybody else is just. I think anybody else is going to need to make a move, a big move forward to be in the mix. You've got the connections with both of them, Cox, Baffert. I just think they're going to take all of the money. But again, I'm not very good at statistics and all that and putting together a morning line, which is, maybe one of my downfalls as a horse player at this point. But
it's not. It's not. It's not that important.
But yeah, I would think Muth will be a slight favorite over Timberlake if I had to guess.
All right. Now we got Gio coming up with the Florida Derby and Arkansas Derby deep dive, and we've got some more stuff coming from you as well, right?
Yep. We're going to talk to Dylan Davis again in the next day or two. Keep our day in and day out series going with Dylan, and then I'll be down at Aqueduct along with my brother Kevin for the Wood Memorial in a couple weeks. We'll do some more stuff with Dylan then, and then Kev and I'll be on at some point later in the week, probably Saturday morning, with a look at either the Arkansas Derby late pick 5 or the Florida Derby late pick 5. Still going through it and seeing which sequence we have the strongest opinions. Came up empty again last weekend, but feel like we handicapped it good, and just got a little unlucky, I guess.
It happens. Tough game, this horse racing. No doubt about it. My plan is to go to the Florida Derby on Saturday. Always subject to change, of course. I'm a last minute change kind of guy, so you never know. May wake up and say, you know what, I'm staying home. But right now the plan is to go. If I do go, I'll do some live videos like we did at the Pegasus from the Florida Derby on scene. So Pastor Wire very well could be in the house. And if we are, we will say hello and get you some information, maybe even get you another winner or two. Last time at Pegasus, I think we went 3 for 3 with our live stream, didn't we?
Yep. Yeah.
So I don't know if we can do that again, but we'll try. You never know.
We've been pretty on it, I feel like.
I'm on it. Listen, I the only thing I'm not on it is my sure bet coffee play of the day. And there were some people that just watched that. They're like, I don't understand why these plays never win. And I'm like, yeah, but I got all these winners on tracking trips. I gotta get hot on sure bet. I mean, we've had 3-4 in a row at times, but I gotta get them a winner. I'm gonna try this weekend.
Yeah. Well, you could always eat chalk and hope for the best.
I don't like to do it. Well, so I even had a couple of chalks, and they didn't win. I liked Intricate. I loved Intricate in that Fairground Oaks race. Didn't run a
Yeah.
step. Didn't run a
I
step.
know. That was disappointing. That was a horse that Kev and I singled on our pick 5 ticket and just had no answer.
Didn't
That was
run a step, man. I didn't like the way from out of the gate looked like he was kind of asking her to just be in contention, and she really wasn't. And then when he asked her to kind of go up and engage, she just didn't have it. And then when they turned for home, she just said, "Nope,
yeah, packed it in.
I'm not here."
Yeah.
And that was disappointing. And I thought for sure she'd go forward in the second start. She might just be an example of one of those fillies that was good at 2 and just didn't go forward at 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Not many more a lot more shows coming up. Not many more Derby radar shows coming up. Unfortunately, we could not do the UAE Derby because we can't find the past performances. And if we can't find them, that means nobody can find them. They're not out there because we would have had them. Hopefully they're out today, but that don't help our show. So,
all right.
But anyway, how many Derby winners have come out of the UAE Derby?
Zero.
So if we had to miss a race, I guess that's a good one to miss. Now that we said that, I guess
I know that Forever Young or whatever is going
to lock, right? He'll win the Derby, and somebody will put this up on the bad takes board. Yeah. Goes with the territory. What can I tell you? But I think Aiden O'Brien's going to win that race with one of his 2. So we'll see what happens.
And there's plenty of good racing over there on Saturday. I'm excited to see that Rodin come back.
The turf race is probably the best turf field that I could remember in the past 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Everybody's a monster. Emily Upjohn, August Rodin, Junko, Shakara, who would have beat Rodin in the Breeders' Cup had he not gotten in trouble under Christian DeMoro. A lot of people don't know that, but if you watch the replay, you'd be hard-pressed to argue against me. But and you know how much I think of August Rodin. But the whole field, you just go down, it's star, 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 star.
And it starts early.
Yeah, but I'm
great.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see August Rodin come back, and I'm very excited to see Emily Upjohn come back.
Yeah, it should be some loaded fields and good racing.
Absolutely. And the Dubai World Cup, always exciting, Haven't been there in a long time. Don't know if I'll ever go back, but it's a fun race.
Yeah.
All right. Ciao for now.
Probably, arguably, Arrogate's best race of his career, I think.
I will agree with that, and I'll throw something else out there. I always like to give these opinions that I would argue that it was also one of Gunrunner's best races, and I'll tell you why. If you remember that night, okay, everybody won from off the pace. No speed held at all. They were all coming from the clouds all night long. Gunrunner was on the lead the whole way and lost to a freak performance by Arrogate, who was riding an obvious track bias. Gunrunner was bucking a track bias and come out of that race, and I don't think ever lost again.
Yeah. Well, that's why you always got to appreciate these horses that come back after their 3-year-old season. Think about how different of a career we look at Gunrunner, that he, was able to run longer than a bunch of the competition at 3. You could argue, if Gunrunner retired after his 3-year-old season, I don't think anybody
okay, right? Would have been just okay, good horse, never nothing special, right?
Yeah, so good for him. Yeah, he's a
right, and we'll never know. Right, he won that race with no shoe. Remember in Saratoga, we'll never know how good so many of these horses could have been because they become so valuable. A horse like Justified. Okay, well, what did he run 5 times? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Win the Triple Crown, breaks the Apollo. Who knows what he would have been at 4, 5. So many of these horses. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah. I mean, even Frosted won a bunch of races as a 4-year-old. Didn't he win the
Monster
Mile
and monster performance
and
in
the Whitney? Like, I don't know. I always like those
I
horses.
I bet him in the Derby that year, and I thought he had a troubled trip, if memory serves correct.
Yeah. All right. We could go on and on.
No question. All righty. Ciao, and we'll be in touch. A lot more stuff coming up. If you enjoy the show, hit the like button. Anything you want to see, leave it in the comments, thoughts, agree, disagree, like somebody else. Let us know. We love the feedback, and we appreciate everybody. So, ciao for now.
DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to drf.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
They're off in the 2023 First Crop Sires race. Maximum Mischief makes the lead with the most 2-year-old maiden special winners by any sire. On the backstretch, Mitoli and Omaha Beach close the gap with stakes performers from coast to coast. Vino Rosso finds his best and leads on the turn with 4 Grade 1 colts on dirt. But it's Mitoli with his 3rd TDN Rising Star, your champion freshman, leading an impressive Spendthrift Superfecta.
Meany, a top 10 first crop sire in 2023, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. 14 first crop winners, including My Shady Lady, winner of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series 5th Avenue Stakes, Grade 2 winner, Winstock, and Stakes winner, Solo Shot. Solo Meany, the 7th leading freshman sire and the only top 10 freshman sire with a Grade 1 or Grade 2 winner. He sired a $700,000 2-year-old at the OBS April sale. His juveniles sold for nearly 6 figures on average, more than 12 times the stud fee. Solomini, a controversial DQ from being a Grade 1 winner by 2-time Horse of the Year Curlin, standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com